We're ready. We're ready.
Okay, so the first thing is, let's take attendance. So would you,
It's an open meeting. Abby, it's an open.
Oh, it's an open meeting, okay.
why don't we get a roll call here? If you could say whether you're in person or on the WebEx, just note that. So I'll start Mike Fascitelli on WebEx. Armin,
I'm in Sabatoni here on WebEx.
Vahid,
Vahid Jazairi on WebEx.
Susan,
Susan Petrovas on WebEx.
Mike McNally,
Mike McNally, WebEx.
hey, David,
Can't hear
David?
it.
Sorry, I was on mute. David Moderano on WebEx as well.
Matt,
Matt Lenz, I dialed in because I can't get the WebEx to work on my phone, but I'm here.
thank you. And then I see Mark.
Yep, Mark Parlange on WebEx.
Great. Okay, I think is that it, Michelle? Did we get everyone? I think we have a quorum.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So now let's go, quorum is present, so I'm gonna call the meeting to order. I want to just remind everyone for the benefit of our audience and the note taker that you clearly identify yourself when you comment, make a motion or second a motion. Everyone using WebEx, which is all of us, are required to keep the cameras on, so exception of Matt, who's having technical difficulty. Using anybody, remote members, make sure you're clearly audible, so there's some rules of the game there. So at this time, I would like to read at the record the University of Rhode Island Land Acknowledgement Statement. The University of Rhode Island occupies the traditional stomping ground of the Narragansett Nation and Niantic people. We honor and respect the enduring and continuing relationship between the indigenous people in this land by teaching and learning more about the history and present-day communities, and by becoming stewards of the land we too inhabit. The first order of business is acceptance of the agenda. So may I have a motion that the Finance and Facilities Committee, accept the agenda for the meeting of August 2nd?
I'm in Sabatoni, so moved.
Thank you. Second?
David Moderano, second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? There being no discussion, can I get a voice vote? All in favor, say yes.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great. The motion to accept the agenda for the meeting of August 2nd is approved. The next item on the agenda is item 2, which will do some housekeeping, approval of the minutes of our last meeting of June 14th. So may I have a motion that the Finance and Facilities Committee of the URI Board of Trustees approve the minutes of the June 14th, 2022 meeting of the committee?
David Moderano, so move.
Thank you. Second?
I'm in Sabatoni, second.
Thank you. There being any discussion on the motion? There being no discussion, another voice vote. All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed or abstentions? Thank you. The motion to approve the minutes of the June 14th meeting is approved. The next item on the agenda is the item 3, executive session. I think the board is going to seek, this is the discussion regarding the acquisition of the real property. After that, we're going to seek executive session. So is that, Michelle, we're going to go into and Abby, we're going to go into the lease of the real property, then go into executive session?
Yes.
No, the discussion will be in executive session.
Okay. All right. So then let's go. We're now going to go into executive session to discuss the lease of the real property that's in your agenda in the acquisition lease. So may I have a motion that the URI Board of Trustees convene the executive session for item 1 just identified?
So moved.
So moved.
Second?
Second, Vahid Jazairi.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Any voice vote? All in favor?
Yes.
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 Any opposed
Yes.
or abstentions? Okay, the motion is approved. The board will now convene an executive session for the reasons specified. It is anticipated the executive session will last about 20 minutes, after which the board will reconvene in open session. Okay, I think it's, Michelle, are we okay to go?
Nope, not yet. If you wait 1 minute, we're gonna move you guys into a private room. And then once you're in a separate room, you'll know you're an executive.
We're trying a new process now with YouTube, which is what we understand is a more secure process than Facebook. So we'll move you virtually into a breakout room, and then we'll let you know, we're off, we're not live right now, obviously. But one other piece of information, since we are in the process of moving everyone into another room, virtual room, is we do have one member of the public here. She's left the room now for executive session, but she will physically return.
Okay.
So.
Someone decided to just show up to attend the meeting in person.
Yes.
One person.
God bless them.
Michelle, at some point, you're going to ask that people confirm that there's no one that can hear where they are in executive session?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Waiting for your, go ahead, Michelle.
Confirm that Alyssa Boss, Armin Sabatoni, David Monterano, Laura Bouvet, Mark Parlange, Matt Lenz, Mike Fascitelli, Mike McNally, Susan Petrovas, and Vahid Ojazayari are in the breakout session.
David.
Said David.
Great, okay.
Great.
So why does it look the same?
No, you haven't started it yet, Lynn. You're still in the main session.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, I see the breakout session active. So if you move them, they should all go in.
They're moving in one by one.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of like being teletransported.
Still here.
Armin
Some of you are making your way.
Last ones to go. I'm in. Everybody's leaving us.
Are we supposed to, well,
Yeah, WebEx is taking its time. You'll be there shortly.
Beam me up, Scotty. Yeah, it's totally like that.
We're moving a large number at once, so WebEx is taking its time.
And Katie, this is Lynn. After you leave the session, when we're ready to end our breakout session, I simply need to press the red button, correct?
Well, yeah, Lynn, right now, you're still in the main meeting. This is still the main meeting.
Yes. Okay.
So camera has to move to the breakout. And once you stop seeing me, you know you're in the breakout session. You also need to make sure Dave gets moved as well.
David, you did say you were going to be the last to go.
They left me. I'm having my own little party here.
And Katie, I did move him to the breakout session, but I see he is not in the session.
All right. I see that. Dave, if you look on your right-hand side of where participants are, if you can open your participant menu, you should see something that says breakout sessions, and you should have an option. You may have the option to join that.
Breakout session, join now.
Yep. All right, same thing goes for you, James. Oh, James isn't in the room. Did he walk out?
Yeah.
Yes.
You may need to call him back in.
Oh, he's coming back in. Here he comes.
He probably has figured it out. James, you just have to join. You have to join the camera to the breakout room. It didn't auto move over. You should be able to see breakout sessions. And once everybody's up, I'll put up the PowerPoint notice that we're in closed session. Matt, did you rejoin? Do you need me to move you into the closed? No, he got angry.
back live? And we're open? Okay, and we're
We
live.
all have returned.
And we are live. We can't hear Mike.
So they'll, you just correct that.
Yep, when everyone rejoined, you may have been automatically muted, so double check your microphones before speaking.
Okay, so they have to just,
Unmute, yeah.
so on our end, they're,
Yeah, they're all muted right now when they rejoin.
okay, so they just have to unmute on theirs?
Yeah.
Okay,
Can you hear me now, Michelle?
all right, perfect. So just a quick unmute when you're speaking, and I can hear you, Mike. Thank you.
Okay, so I was muted before. So I would say the Board of Trustees is now convened in open session. The first order of business in open session is a motion to seal the executive session minutes. May I have a motion that the URI Board of Trustees Finance and Facilities Committee session, executive session be sealed?
Matt Len, so moved.
A second.
David Morano, second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? There being no discussion, I ask for a voice vote. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
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 Any opposed or abstentions? Thank you. The motion is approved. The next item on the agenda is item 4, action item 4, which is to review the change in the university capital improvement budget, which you remember we discussed last time and discussed at the board meeting. So I think Abby, you're going to take us through. You and Ryan going to take us through
Right,
this?
and Ryan, yes.
Right.
Okay, so just by way of introduction, there are just 2 changes to the CIP that the board approved in June. The first one is only a change in funding. The project, which is the athletics complex renovation, was on the CIP in June. It's 82.3 million. And at that time, our strategy was to ask to put it on the general obligation bonds referendum for FY24, which would then allow us to start the project in FY26, which is July of 2025. We learned, the president learned from the state that this coming year, the state is anticipating having a very large surplus. And that this is probably likely the last year which they will have a very large surplus, which, if you will recall, what happens when the state has a surplus, it flows first into the rainy day fund of the state. And when that rainy day fund is equal to 5% of the previous year's revenues, then the money flows over into so-called RICAP, which is money that is used to pay as you go on capital maintenance rather than issuing debt, and it makes it less expensive for the state. So we're expecting that the state will have extra abnormally high amounts of RICAP for FY24, and therefore we want to change the source of funding for the athletics complex from GeoBond to RICAP, and ask the state to give us $82.3 million in RICAP. Now, practically, we don't know if that will work, in combination with the other things they're planning. But I think that it's important for us to try and get as much RICAP as we can for that project, because it's less expensive and it's earlier. We get the money sooner, which makes it less expensive. And then it also, what it does is it means that in the FY24 referendum, the URI item that will be on there is the life sciences building, which is very important for our research efforts. We are very, very tight on lab space, and it gives it the sort of premier billing on the referendum. So that's what we're asking to do, is to change the source of funding for the athletic complex renovation to a request for RICAP funds. The second change is the result of legislation that was passed after the last board meeting, specifically to add a $20 million project funded by RICAP for a PFAS water treatment plant. PFAS are, I'm not going to get it, but they're basically perfluoride chemicals. They're plastic derivatives, essentially. They're forever chemicals, right? That's the lay term. And the legislation that was passed requires that the combined quantity of PFAS in any water system has to add up to 20 parts per trillion or less. So in essence, that means they have to be non-detectable. Our water system is running a little higher than 20 parts per trillion, not a lot, it's in the 20s, but it's enough so that in order to reach the limit that is now law as of about July, I don't know, the governor signed it about July 7th or so, we have to install an entire water treatment plant to treat all of our water. It constitutes essentially, it's a mandate without funding, and we're asking the state if they will fund it for us. We estimate that it's going to cost somewhere between $15 and $20 million. The other problem that you should be aware of is that there's a deadline written into the law of July 1st, 2023 for us to attain this level of 20 parts per trillion of PFAS. We are virtually certain that it's not going to be possible to have the water treatment plant completed by then. What the law provides is that if you don't hit that target, you have to bring in water from some other supply, so that the water that you're delivering is under 20 parts per trillion. We're currently looking to see if we can partially mitigate that risk by building a chlorination plant for the water from Kingston Water Supply, which is unchlorinated. But we're really in the very beginning phases of that. The main point of this is a mandate that the state placed on us but didn't fund. And so we're asking them to fund it. And so those are the two changes that we're asking for in the CIP, the Capital Improvement Plan.
Abby, if I could, I'd like to add just a couple of things. One, to remind, RICAP funding is to improve or repair facilities, university facilities, or state facilities, and we have, of course, a quarter of the facilities. We're hoping this year that people will be coming back to campus, will be coming to the football game. So it's very specific what we're asking on, and this plan has been in place for quite some time. So it's basically the football stands that are in bad state of repair. It's for the running track for our track and field team. I remind that they're the best team in New England. They won the 8-10. The men and women last year won it. We have not had a track since 1993. It's in a complete state of disrepair. The women's softball is needs to be repaired. The men's baseball needs to be repaired, and then finally the crew facility needs to be done. So those are the asks there, and this is exactly what it's was intended to be in terms of demand. On the PFAS, I think, Abby, you have an estimate that it will be on the order of 16 million to 20 million. So we're asking for 20 million. It may be less, though who knows, it could actually end up being more expensive. But we obviously, the University of Rhode Island does the research on PFAS. We have some of the top scientists in the United States in that area. We have a large NIEHS grant, so we've done a lot of work on the chemicals going through the food supply and so forth. So it's important. We want to have clean drinking water, and so that is an important piece for us. But obviously, it's quite expensive what the filtration system that we would have to put on. And I also realized when I was looking at this that I should say thank you for having this meeting today. It has to go before the Board of Trustees. It had to go before this committee first. And, with the timing and notification of folks to be able to submit the request on Friday, we need to be able to bring this before the Board of Trustees on Thursday, assuming that this committee supports this ask for RICAP funding.
This is Amin. I just got one quick question. The water treatment plant, that was enacted just this June?
Correct. It was enacted actually finally enacted in July. It was one of the very last things the General Assembly did before they adjourned for the session.
Do we know that this was going through the General Assembly?
We did know, and we testified indirectly against it. And the reason that we did it that way was because we totally support the notion that we should have good drinking water. And we've done a lot of the PFAS research that shows that these chemicals are harmful. So our approach was to point out that, one, it was an unfunded mandate, and two, that the deadlines were not achievable. So we did bring all that argument forward, and we're not successful in getting anyone to take that into account as they were drafting the legislation.
And we also asked for the money to build it.
We did.
Where did it originate? Either House or Senate, or it came in both ends?
Both chambers.
All right.
Armin, this is happening around the country. So EPA came out with some decisions and opinions recently. So it's kind of instigated a lot of various state legislators that are acting on it, and various different places are putting different limits on it. So I wasn't aware that it was happening in Rhode Island until I heard from that.
In fact, this bill was introduced a year ago and did not make it out of committee. And then this year was reintroduced, and because of the imperfections in the legislation, our legislative advisors felt that it was not going to move forward. However, on June 14th or 15th, the EPA, which had set an advisory standard previously of 70 parts per trillion, suddenly said, oh no, it's 20 parts per trillion, and that's the limit for the sum of all of the PFAS that, all the perfluoride chemicals that you find in your water. So that created, I think, a kind of a momentum on these bills, not just in Rhode Island, but elsewhere.
Right, Bobby, you know who the primary sponsor was in the House and the Senate?
June Speakman was one of the sponsors.
Excuse me?
June Speakman, Senator, she's a rep, right? Isn't she? Rep Speakman.
She's a rep, yep.
Yep, so June Speakman was one. I don't recall who the Senate was.
All right, okay.
Any other questions? I mean, I think as Mark said, first of all, appreciate everyone coming together on such short notice and taking this to the committee so we can our goal today is to recommend these changes to the board if we're comfortable with them. So any other questions for Abby or Ryan or Mark? If not, then to kind of keep with the timing that Mark was describing, I need a motion that the Finance and Facilities Committee of the URI Board of Trustees recommend to the Board of Trustees, which is now going to be on Thursday, approve the changes in the University of Rhode Island capital improvement plan for fiscal 2024-28 as presented and recommended, as we just discussed.
This is Armin, so moved.
Matt Len, seconded.
Okay, any, all in favor?
Yes.
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 Any opposed or any abstentions? Thank you. The motion is approved, and passes. So, before we adjourn, does anyone have anything else? Because the next item is the adjournment. Anyone have anything? Well, we have this, kind of, as Mark said, called this board meeting for Thursday to get into the timing and deadlines to get these two approved. That was the main event, and then these other real estate, things came up for everyone's awareness. So from my standpoint, I have nothing else, but if anyone else does, before we go to adjournment. Great. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Matt Len, so moved.
Is there a second?
Mike McDowell, second.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Yes.
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 Any opposed or abstaining from adjourning? Okay. The next URI Board of Trustees Finance and Facilities Committee, hopefully without any other rushing, is scheduled for September 16th, 2022. Thank you all for your extra time and effort today.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.
Thank you, everybody. You were great.